Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grill Nation Show with Jason Grill. Thanks for listening today to the podcast. If you're listening on podcast networks, we're on all of them. If you're watching today on my social media, we greatly appreciate it. Up on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching this. We have another great episode today. I'm very excited about it. Like to welcome back to the show Alan Farris, who is the Senior Vice President of Landmark National Bank. Their website is banklandmark.com. Alan, how are you today?
Excellent, Jason. It's nice to join you again.
It's nice to be back with you, man. How have you been?
Pretty darn good. You know, it's a fun time to be in Kansas City with the Jayhawks advancing to the Final Four. We've got a major presence in Lawrence, and our guest is from Lawrence today. So there's a KU flavor to it.
As a Missourian, I'll have to be okay with that today, huh?
Born and raised.
I'm a
Missouri.
regional guy. I've become a regional guy now. You know that, Alan. Kansas City.
Amen,
Kansas City is where I live, but whatever's good for the economy is fine by me. So, Alan Farris again. Who are we going to be having on today? Before we kind of get into some bank updates, who's going to be joining us?
Mike Logan is the owner of a number of live music venues and event venues in Lawrence, Kansas, mostly known for the Granada Theater, which is kind of a regional destination. And it's interesting to hear Mike's story about the pandemic and COVID and how they're recovering, and also how the state of Kansas really kind of helped them with Mike's leadership to recognize that these live music venues are really a huge part of the economy in this part of the world.
Mm-hmm. The website is thegranada.com. Mike Logan is our guest. He's also just a consummate business person. We'll get into some of his other dealings as well in Lawrence, but he's engaged in a lot of different, business aspects. Hopefully we'll learn from him on, some of the lessons he's learned, some of the growth issues he's had, and, kind of dive into how this industry really works. And then obviously, as you talk about some of the pandemic issues that were faced as well, and how they're kind of pivoting and coming out of that on the show today. Again, the website is thegranada.com. Alan, let's talk about you and Landmark National Bank, banklandmark.com. What are some updates you wanted to share? You guys are such a good, update on, current events, current issues, current trends that you're seeing, because you work with so many business owners, so many entrepreneurs, so many people who are engaged in our community. What are you seeing out there, and what is happening right now?
Well, the bank continues to do really well, and our commercial loan totals continue to grow, and we've got good volume. The two topics that you hear on a regular basis. Number one, every business is struggling trying to attract and keep good people. I yet to hear a business, regardless of what the industry is, that says, we're completely full of employees. And that includes the bank. We've got open positions for a range of careers, whether it's a teller, whether it's operations, whatever it might be. And that's true almost statewide, but particularly here in Kansas City, where the need is greatest and the competition is greatest.
You're seeing that too. You're seeing that too with other industries as well, and a lot of your clients, their customers.
It makes no difference whether you're talking healthcare, whether you're talking service, whether you're talking construction, wholesale, manufacturing. It just is across the board, and it's just a reoccurring thing. I'd like to go to one meeting with a customer or prospect and have them say, "Nope, we've solved the problem, and we know exactly how to attract people."
Yeah.
And I've yet to find somebody who can say that. I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't met them yet.
Good time to be a job seeker, I guess, or a person who's a free agent, maybe. I mean, I guess everyone's a free agent these days, and when it comes to life, and as far as jobs, it seems like there's always people are really kind of demanding more these days as far as pay and flexibility. Yeah. So hopefully that turns around.
Yeah, the Great Resignation is a true thing.
Yeah. So, what other issue are you facing? I know you mentioned one briefly to me off the air.
Well, I think everybody is mindful of interest rates at this point in time. We saw the Fed for the first time in a number of years increased rates slightly earlier this month. So that was a 25 a quarter percent increase. Fed's made it pretty clear there's going to be at least 3, maybe 4 more increases. So, rates probably by year end are going to be up 1%, maybe 1.25. That would put prime at 4 to 4.25, maybe 4.50. But that's still significant below the pre-COVID levels. So rates continue to be historically low, even with some increases being planned for in the next few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been seeing that. My mortgage came up this month for, it's been a year, and I got it under 3 for my 30 year, and then I looked today, and they're like 5% now, or 4 or 5%. So it's definitely the interest rates are going up across the board in different markets and different sectors.
True, but rates are still at historically low levels, so we're not seeing the interest rate impacting loan volume at this moment in time.
Well, that's positive. Yeah, you're right. We got to look at the long term and kind of look back at the historics as well. Alan Farris is with us, Senior Vice President of Landmark National Bank. The website again is banklandmark.com. Alan, let's bring on our guest here, Mike Logan. Bring him up here on the stream. I'm going to change my background there. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Now, where are we hearing from you? Are you in Lawrence today?
I'm in Lawrence today. Yeah, I'm actually at Abe and Jake's Landing, my office here, right on the river, right on the Kaw River.
What are things like in Lawrence right now with the Jayhawks?
Everybody's walking on their tippy toes. I always say if the Jayhawks can get to the second weekend, you get a lot of smiles on your face downtown. But making it to the Final Four is a big deal. For everyone's mood, but also for the sales tax coffers in Lawrence. I don't care what you sell, what widget it is, or what food or beverage you sell. You're going to sell more this weekend. Every hotel in Lawrence is sold out. Airbnbs are spoken for. With 4 blue bloods in the Final Four this weekend, ticket prices are higher than ever down in New Orleans. Travel is tight. So there's a lot of people in the Kansas City area making a pilgrimage over to Lawrence to catch a place to watch a game.
Let me ask you this before we get into your background. Like, what does that day look like for you on Saturday? The game's at what, like 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, I think?
Game's at 5:09. I'll be downtown at about 6:30 a.m. I've got between all of our places, we have 6 watch parties. My events venue is hosting a large watch party. My music venues are hosting watch parties. And we turn into a big sports bar for a day or 8 hours, and that's okay. We'll embrace it. As big a music fan as I am, I'm a huge Jayhawk fan as well. So we'll embrace that, and hopefully, I'll knock on something here. We can do it again on Monday if they can get a win on Saturday.
Yeah, that's very cool and exciting for you and your companies and businesses and everyone in Lawrence. Tell us about your background, Mike. I mean, how'd you get into this? What's your journey look like? Very interested to know because you've obviously been in this industry for a while.
Sure. Well, I'm a Lawrence kid. My family moved to Lawrence just before junior high, and they actually moved when I graduated high school to Florida, and I stayed here and went to KU and cut my teeth working basically 40-hour weeks when I was in college here. Most notably at the Eldridge Hotel here in downtown Lawrence. I was a bellman and room service, banquet, front desk, valet, you name it. But it's where anytime I get a chance to go, talk or speak in front of someone, it's where I found my hustle. Working at a boutique independent hotel in the hospitality industry. I had offers when I was there in college. From folks who would come in, visit, we'd have an encounter, wanting me to go work elsewhere in the hospitality industry. I looked at transferring to K-State University or UNLV for hospitality programs, and thankful I didn't end up doing that based on how my journey went post there. But the hospitality industry, that's something I got into when I was 16 or 17 years old, and I haven't found a reason to get out of it. Even COVID made me think, right? COVID made me think about it hard. I do have a lot of eggs in one basket. I am heavily invested in dollars and time in the hospitality industry here in Lawrence. But, I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. And we're still standing and hopefully looking forward to a fruitful weekend and month of business.
Mm-hmm. What are your different business ventures? Take us through those in Lawrence before we get to the Granada.
Sure. I have Abe and Jake's Landing, which is a private event space, 18,000 square feet. Old building was built as a barbed wire factory in 1884, operated as a paper mill, corrugated cardboard warehouse, sat vacant for a long time. And I actually started working here in college, 2001 to 2006, post-college, ended up buying the space in 2012. And it's my private event, civic event, not every nonprofit fundraiser you can think of that we can host, beer and wine expos. It's situated right on the river next to Marriott Brand Hotel, and it's definitely a one of a kind space here in Lawrence. I've got the Granada Theater, which this is 20 years this year that I've owned the Granada, which is crazy to me. 2002, I became a partner in the Granada, and then I bought out my partners in 2003. And I was 2 years out of college, and Alan may or may not appreciate the story of me financing the Granada purchase. Initially, I bought half of it on contract, which is how you get things done when you're young and don't have any money but a ton of energy. And the second portion, we went out and got an SBA loan. I got an SBA loan when I was 23 years old with not a whole lot of money in the bank, but
that's pretty great. That's pretty cool that happened.
Yeah, and a banker who believed in me, and that's what it is. In banking, it's about relationships, it's about trust, and it's about being able to. You can sell it, but you got to deliver on it. And so I learned that very, very early with that space. And then since that point, I've added Lucia, which is a small restaurant, bar, and live music venue, which is right next door to the Granada. The Bottleneck, which is a storied music venue. 2020 was to be 35 years of live music at the Bottleneck. It survived its life longer than the notable the CBGBs in New York. You name it. These storied clubs. It has a history nationally that really can't be touched. And the opportunity came up to purchase that space in 2019. Now, timing, in hindsight, I bought it in the fall of 2019, and then the world stopped spinning in March of 2020. So it was, but it was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. And for me, it helped coalesce and make sure that live music was happening in my spaces and in these spaces in downtown Lawrence for as long as I'm around, and hopefully whoever I pass the torch to at some point is really interested in the purpose of those buildings and those businesses hosting live music for a long time. Aside from that, I've got a little pocket bar, neighborhood bar called Rick's Place at 9th and Illinois. I lived in the neighborhood for a long time. It's the kind of place with a shuffleboard and a pool table and 13 bar stools and just, a place you can walk to. And it is the least intensive from my time, but it's one of the places that I enjoy the most for just getting people together for afternoon meeting.
When did you decide to do more than the Granada? What year was that what was the year that you actually did more than the Granada? Because that had to be a big decision for you in step with such a, storied event space or, music venue.
Well, the first time I jumped out of the Granada and added two was in 2006. I actually opened a music venue in Iowa City, Iowa,
Oh,
and
you left Lawrence and it's
I,
something different.
I left Lawrence, but it was travel too. And I tell you what I learned in that project. I ended up selling the project about 4 years later because I found myself needing to be in Lawrence more often. And the things that were so special to me about owning a business with an impact, whether culturally or economically in Lawrence, were what I was missing trying to operate a venue in a city I didn't live in. The comforts that I had in Lawrence, I didn't enjoy there, and most of that was how we tried to intertwine our local small business in this downtown district into what's going on in the community. I didn't have the bandwidth without living, eating, breathing in the city I lived in. And it's just, some of that's just nature. That's me. I think there's others who can find success in that. And certainly understanding, again, the bandwidth available from a small business owner. You have to be able to, and I was young. I was, early 20s, 25, 26 years old when that was working. And I didn't understand the value in strategic partnership. And also I didn't have a management training program that I could lean on that was refined. And so, I take that one as a loss. I still have the sign from the building. When I sold it, they changed the name, and so I took the sign with me. It's a reminder for me. It hangs in my garage. Actually, it's a reminder for me of where I was at that point in time and the lessons that I learned from it. So that was the first time I jumped out, and then I really just honed in and really wanted to make sure that the Granada was just humming like it should. I did have a consulting company, so I would do festival work and some outside booking, corporate booking, and things like that. But my brick and mortar was the Granada Theater downtown, and
what makes that place so special to you, Mike? And we're talking to Mike Logan, who's the managing partner of the Granada, and the history and the background of that building and that venue. What is that? What does that mean to you, and why has that kind of been the number one?
Music venues, the arts, right, for a community like ours, or in just scale to larger communities, are a defining characteristic of the place that we live in. And when I was younger, I would talk your ear off about the first of three bands that you need to get there at 7:30, to see. And I was jazzed on the music component, right? And I geek out on that, and I enjoy that. I think as I grew as a business owner in this community, you have to. I was able to start articulating the impact of live music in Lawrence, Kansas, from an economic standpoint. And I'll give you a few stats to maybe illustrate that. When I sell tickets to a show, let's say at the Granada, 52% of those on average of ticket sales come from outside of Lawrence or Douglas County. Those are outside dollars. Those are dollars being spent in Lawrence that weren't there. Now, if you go to a show, you're probably going to meet friends for dinner or drinks. If you're traveling, you may stay in a hotel. You're going to get breakfast in the morning. You're going to get gas on the way out of town. And you start quantifying the overall economic impact of what live music is and does for the community. And some of those things that were very well understood, and we'll get to this a little later, are what our industry had to lean on and project through COVID to our counties and the state of Kansas, and from a national standpoint. And so I think my focus here and the other things I'm involved in on the downtown business district board, the tourism board, the things that I spend my time on all revolve around telling the story of what the arts or culture means from an economic standpoint and from a cultural standpoint, and a placemaking and defining. People want to start their business, keep their business, or bring their business to places they want to live and enjoy. And it may, we're proud of the fact that what we do is a part of the why. And so being able to illustrate and discuss that is really important to us.
Mm-hmm. Alan, jump in here whenever you'd like, my friend.
Jason, what's amazing in getting to know Mike is the extent of the live music scene in this area. Lawrence, Kansas City, and the number of venues, and as Mike was indicating, the sheer economic impact of those venues that may not have been known until the pandemic. And Mike, you might talk a second about what you were able to do with the state of Kansas to kind of get them to understand that impact and why they should be supporting this industry better today than they were a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question.
Yeah, there's a lot of me's out there. Independent venue owner, right? And typically, small business, independent venue, you're very aware of competition and you keep things close to the vest. The pandemic made us independent venue owners open up a line of communication almost immediately. We were the first to close. You can't do a live show halfway. You can't do the economics of a show don't allow for a half capacity or a 20% capacity, or certainly the zero capacity. We were the first to close, and for many venues, we're the last to have the opportunity to open in a full format. We were able to create the Kansas Venue Coalition. So that's myself, Alex Thomas, owner of the Cotillion in Wichita, Kansas, storied venue, Adam Hartke with the Wave in Wichita, Chris Fritz, who owns Sandstone or Azura Amphitheater, as you know now, and Josh Hunt from Mammoth Productions, which is the single largest concert producer in the state of Kansas, and myself created the Kansas Venue Coalition. And then we solicited all the independent venues in Kansas, and not all participated, but we had about 27 venues from Manhattan and Dodge City and Atchison and you name it, all the way from the Replay Lounge in Lawrence that holds 150 people up to the amphitheater that holds 18,000 people. And we were able to put our numbers together and create a presentation. We had an advocate at the time was the head of the Department of Commerce, David Toland, here in Kansas. He's now the vice governor, and he was crucial to our industry into listening to our presentation and then setting up opportunities or pointing us in the right direction of state officials to have conversations with. We were able to create a carve out in the CARES funds that traveled from Fed to Kansas. In the state of Kansas had a Spark program, and actually the Kansas Venue Coalition helped administer and evaluate that program, which allowed some relief in mid 2020. That and I describe this as a lily pad, right? Our industry at zero, we needed help to get across the pond, to get back to open. And the state of Kansas allowed that lily pad, right? We were able to jump and keep ourselves afloat in mid 2020. And at the same time, all of us independent venues in Kansas and in every other state quickly formed the National Independent Venue Association, NIVA, and got some wonderful support from both sides of the aisle. And ultimately, there was a package put together called Save Our Stages that was finally approved December 27th of 2020 and administered in was to be April. I think it ended up being closer to June of 2021 that allowed some relief funds to come down to performance venues. And this is everything from music venues like mine to Radio City Music Hall, to the Wiltern, to you name it across the country, some federal funds that flowed down to help backfill. We're mounting debt and bills associated with these venues, and allowed for some payroll backfill and things like that that just allowed us to get to the point of reopening, and so crucial.
It's amazing. I mean, it had you not maybe created that a coalition or that association and had the advocacy awareness to get engaged and build those relationships, you might never have had that. I mean, it just goes to show you that you gotta get engaged when there's stuff that faces your industry. I think that's just a huge success. I liked your lily pad example as well. So we're over that pad now, or we've crossed it, I hope. Where are you now with everything coming out of COVID, and what's next? I mean, are you still coming out of it? I'm assuming you are.
Yeah. It part of that presentation was and for the numbers, it was over $400 million annually in economic impact generated by the members of the Kansas Venue Coalition, and that's an important number. Kansas, from a tourism standpoint, is considered fishing, hunting, gaming, right? And I think there is this wonderful cultural component in Kansas, largely concentrated in Northeast down to South, but certainly across the state, that it is important. And I think we were able to have conversations across the state that elevated the importance of these cultural components in how Kansas markets itself moving forward post COVID. So I think that has opened a number of conversations and opportunities. The Kansas Venue Coalition has kind of a standing 60-day conversation with the governor's office about our industry, where we're at, where we want to go, what are the opportunities that our industry, not just this year, but in 3 years or 5 years, how are we creating defining events, festivals, venue creation? How are we possibly optimizing the use of our state parks for some of these things? So it opened up a line of communication that I think for our industry is going to allow for future growth and creative energy into what we do. Personally, the fall of 2021, we booked, things opened up quite a bit in June of 2021, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no shortage of bands who want to tour, right? So we booked the calendar pretty heavy in the fall. August, COVID numbers kind of flared. We ended up moving, I'll say 40 or 50% of our shows, postponing later on in the year, and then into 2022. We probably had 30 to 40% of our shows play off in the fall. Certainly not where we need to be, but we were able to keep our heads above water this fall. So that is where we were in the fall. In 2022, I will have what I finally feel like is a true back to business month in April of 2022. If everything holds, I feel like we will be back volume wise where we were in February of 2020.
That's great. Mike Logan is with us, who is the managing partner of the Granada and also owns many places you've probably heard of in the Lawrence area. I have a quick question about just kind of the process. How do you get these acts, or how does it work when an act wants to come to Lawrence, or what's your process looks like? Just to get people to come that are big names or up and coming names. How does that negotiation work?
Sure. Well, the venue,
because obviously there's a lot of cities out there. As well as I do, there's a lot of college towns, and there's a lot of culturally cool, like artsy. I went to law school at Mizzou, and they have the Blue Note there. I think it's still there. I saw a couple shows there. I was in school, and then there's just so much competition. How do you keep in tune to who you need to have, or how does that process work?
Well, like with banking, it's relationships. It's relationships with the agents. Now, some agencies who represent these bands have 8 bands, and some have 8,000 bands, right? So it's relationship with the agent. It's our reputation, the venue's reputation, the talent buyer or the promoter who's working on booking the show's reputation for the room, and the place that we are. Now, I love the Blue Note, and they're kind of a sister venue to us in Columbia. Columbia is a little different than Lawrence, and sometimes a band, when traveling from east to west, only has 30 dates, and it's going to be either or, right? They're going to play Columbia or Lawrence, or Omaha or Lawrence, or Wichita or Des Moines. So sometimes it's just a logistics, and they'll hit you on the way back. But generally, Lawrence, the venue's reputation, downtown Lawrence's reputation is a plus. Being a college community is a plus. When I started in this business 20 years ago, Kansas City didn't have 1/10 of the venues. Kansas City was really a dormant market. Kansas City's just in the last 10 years had a number of venues percolate, and wonderful venues. I think Kansas City has grown. You've seen all the growth in downtown area, the Crossroads area. And so there is even more competition for what we do in Lawrence in Kansas City. And sometimes Lawrence used to get every play, and now it may be every other play. But the beautiful thing is music's so accessible. You're finding a new band every day, and there's no shortage of bands who have a platform and an opportunity, certainly for some of the streaming services, where bands can go from zero to large venues pretty quickly. And so there's an inventory out there, and it's our job. You're kind of playing the stock market, right? You're trying to buy high and or on the way up, right? And make calculated risk when we book things. And if you like, we can get into some of the specifics of show deals and how those are put together. But generally, it's very relationship based, and Lawrence has had a long history, and we hope to keep it that way.
Mike, you might also do one of the exciting things about your industry and what you've been able to do is the sheer numbers of local talent that you have been able to showcase and really kick off some really wonderful careers that started here, and in the number of wonderful acts and musicians that are around this area.
Oh, sure. Well, Lawrence, and Kansas City for a long time have been known as incubators for bands, and it's wonderful when a band that starts in our region and then is able to tour nationally and internationally, and most of them are very proud of where they came from, where they started, and so when you see them out playing large festivals and touring across the country. But make sure that they represent where they come from. We've had an opportunity to be a part of so many bands in the venues, and in Lawrence in particular, we have, and I mentioned earlier, we have venues that hold 75, 150, 250, Bottleneck at 450, Granada, Liberty Hall. So we have this vertical of music venues in Lawrence that other communities really salivate over, because they just don't have that opportunity to grow a band from a $3 cover charge and 10 p.m. start up to a mid-range ticket, or even then some higher tickets and higher levels of production. We have the opportunity, and that's not just local but national. Band comes through. The White Stripes played the Replay Lounge, which holds 150 people. The first time they came through the market, right? Granada hosted a Post Malone, he's a popular hip hop star, in 2016, and then 2 years later he sold 18,000 tickets in Kansas City. We have a lot of those stories where they played.
You've had John Mayer, you've had Weezer. I think Ben Folds 5. Flaming Lips. I mean. The list goes on and on. Smashing Pumpkins back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Creed. I mean, you've had so many. I mean, the list goes on and on with actual like people that that are household names at this point.
Yeah, and it predates me, but Bottleneck had Radiohead and Sublime. The Foo Fighters' first tour was at the Bottleneck. There's a million of those stories, and we like to tell those stories. But that's in the clubs, the gritty music venues is where bands get their start, and where agents know how to make them road worthy. Working through the club network, and we're lucky for the Bottleneck in Granada here in Lawrence to be part of that national circuit. And but it is maintaining the relationship and the hospitality side of it. It always comes back to the hospitality side. When artists come to town and their crew come to town, we have to take care of them. Most shows we have a production staff who is a runner who's really taking care of the band for the day, whether it's rides to and fro, shopping, and just being kind of the concierge for that artist on that specific day in our community.
Mm-hmm. What was the most impactful moment so far that you've had at the Granada for the business and maybe for yourself, your favorite moment?
Oh wow! Like from a show standpoint,
was there one like boom moment where you're like, wow, this is so cool, this is amazing, this is happening right now?
Probably early on in 2003, 2004, from the indie music scene was so strong, and we would have weeks where we'd have 3, 4, 5, 6 shows a week. And the thing that keeps it fresh for me is that these venues are merely vessels for artistic talent, right? I would have these weeks where I'd have a monster independent, like an indie band. I'd have a bluegrass show, a hip hop show, a death metal show, a punk show, and just a look at 1 week snapshot. And depending on what time of day and what night of the week you drove by, you'd go, "What the hell is going on here?" Because it's a different set of people who have a attachment, an emotional attachment to these artists, and that for me keeps it special. So the variety that a venue like ours are able to maintain, that to me is the most special part.
Mm-hmm. What's cool about you is, Mike, that I've noticed, Mike Logan, a managing partner of the Granada, is I can tell you're still very passionate about music, entertainment, and you've been in this industry for so long, but it's fascinating and awesome to see that you're it's not only a business, it's a lifestyle. It's something you really care about. And you obviously have really done a good job of communicating that with policymakers and leaders in Topeka and throughout Kansas. But I think that's really important. And it definitely exudes out of you. That's for sure.
Oh, thank you. If you would have caught me like mid 2020, I might have been a little more off. But yeah, we're excited about what we do. There's a lot of energy. We employ, I think, some of the fun stats that I share when I get an opportunity to speak about our industry. Every band that comes through one of our venues, they have a predetermined catering budget or per diem, right? And my largest month that I can recall at the Granada, I think we had 17 or 18 shows in the month. And catering budget. So these are dollars that I hand a touring band. Total for the month, $14,600 that we just turn around hand. And what do they do with those dollars? They go down to the record store, they go to the restaurant, and it's just immediate economic impact, turning right around. And the hope is, and where we point is to our friends and neighbors in our district, the small retailers. I'm in the hospitality industry, but I'm such a champion for small independent retail. I think it's so important to have a mix of hospitality and retail in our district. And so we strive for that and point people certainly in the right direction.
Would you say your biggest risk in your career was the Iowa City endeavor, or were you just too young at that time? What if not that, what has been one of the risks that you've taken as a business owner that you've done or you've learned from?
That's a great question. Yeah, adding a second entree to my plate when I was when I was maybe too young to know better certainly was a risk. I would tell you, bringing on to the point now, and it's just creating a vertical integration and bringing on the bottleneck and the other tertiary businesses is being able to have the willingness to seek consultant help on how to build a system. And I'm like a small business development center success story, right? When I bought the Granada, I went to my local SBDC, and I sat there like a sponge and said, "Hey, what do I need to do?" And the one thing, and I tell this to everyone who talks to me about starting a small business, independently owned business, is find a good accountant and bookkeeper. You talk to me, I could talk like this to anybody, right? If I'm passionate about it, I'll get going. And I love to be on the big idea side, but I need that X's and O's counterpoint. Some people have that in a partner or in a partnership opportunity. I found mine in my bookkeeper and CPA, able to keep me, the truth is in the numbers always. I can be as passionate about it, whatever it is, but making sure you're paying attention to it's certainly in the hospitality industry where the margins are so slim. And so anyway, that's my best piece of advice for small business owners.
It's great advice. Alan, what would you say as far as, you at the bank working with a business owner like Mike in this industry? I know is as far as the bank working with him, what's that been like? And then obviously, what are your thoughts and considerations about the entertainment and concert venue type, industries?
Sure. Well, as Mike's identifying, hospitality is a tough business. And those who succeed are the ones that, what Mike used the term sponge, that look to partner with a number of people. So they usually have got a strong bank that works with them. They've got a strong accountant that works with them. They've usually got a good attorney that works with them. But what makes it most successful is when the owner is willing to listen, to be the sponge, to say, hey, you know what? I'm really looking for partnerships. And partnerships mean, tell me what I don't know, tell me how to grow, but what should I be focusing on? And that's Mike. Mm-hmm. Mike listens and wants to learn. And that's the one common trait, I think, to the most successful small business owners.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. As we wind down, I want to ask some quick questions to Mike. Mike, we kind of just talked about your best advice and what you learned. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing in your life?
Oh my goodness!
Because you've been you staple right now in this community and in the entertainment world, hospitality.
That's a great question. I don't know. I do. I have an affection for design, residential design. I actually at some point flirted with looking into renewable energies, and I have friends who are in California who have utility scale projects, solar projects, and wind projects. That really interests me. I think those are, if I wasn't in the hospitality industry, I may venture that way. It's hard for me to think, especially as I've kind of layered the different facets of hospitality, and I've got 2 or 3 other and unfortunately or fortunately projects that are percolating that are in the hospitality industry. So if we were to chat a year from now, there may be a whole nother conversation. But
you're always evolving. You're growing.
Yeah, well, and it's and if you have some level of success in the hospitality industry, you certainly have you have others reaching out for potential opportunities, which is wonderful. I think what I have to be always paying attention to is available bandwidth. And if I'm going to do, if I'm going to get involved in something, I want to make sure that it has my full attention. And sometimes you can get real hungry and move too fast, and then you miss steps. And so I'm always interested, but I also like that work-life balance, right? Like hospitality industry, if it's one restaurant, that can eat up 110% of your time. And so without a great team and without the right people in place, it's impossible to have multiples, certainly in the hospitality industry and a number of other industries. So paying attention to that available time is certainly important to me.
Do you miss that, or do you like the fact that you're doing all these things at once? Because you just said 110% at one restaurant. Now it seems like you've got 5, 6, maybe even more stuff happening. Like, how it's just, you have a great team, huh? Is that what it comes down to?
You have to invest. You have to invest in your people. You have to invest in their time, have a path for them to grow with you in your companies. And I think that's what if anything, when I was in my mid-20s, I thought I was Superman, right? Yeah, take it. And that's, no one's Superman. You have to be very strategic about the way you think about your time and plan a vertical, with a very strong base. And so that's where I've spent a lot of my time, and I've been fortunate to have amazing partners. I have partners in several of my projects who all bring value and are at the table in a lot of these conversations. So it is, it has to work right. And so I've been fortunate. I'll tell you that I've been I feel very fortunate to be in the position we are, to still be here standing post-COVID. And my hope is that our energy and my team's energy and my partner's energy are all focused on, future growth, smart growth in the industry that we're in.
Couple more minutes here with Mike Logan, who's the managing partner of the Granada, and Alan Farris, senior vice president of Landmark National Bank. How many concerts do you think you've been to in your life, and what was maybe 1 or 2 of your favorites?
Tens of thousands. I can't even imagine.
Hopefully your hearing's still there, Mike.
What's that?
Hopefully your hearing is still there.
You ask my wife, she'll probably say no, or selectively. Okay, so my first concert, I'll tell you my first concert. My parents, who are live, I learned the love of live music from my dad. He was listening to records at insane decibels when I was a young child. They took me to Sandstone. I was 8 years old, to see Bon Jovi with Skid Row, Slippery When Wet tour. It was 1988. I wish I still had the T-shirt. An amazing show, right? I was 8 years old, and that was the first big amphitheater show that I saw, and I had the album, I had the whole thing. Other shows that have just been amazing for me. Pick one at the Granada. The band The Killers played the Granada. Huge pop band. I saw John Mayer. We actually paid John Mayer, you mentioned this, $200. Booked him at Avon Jake's in 2002. We booked the Roots in 2003, and was one of my top shows. Around anniversary times, we come up with our top shows, and it always ends up in my top 5 shows. But outside, I recently, pre-COVID, I went and saw My Morning Jacket at Red Rocks, which is, a holy grail outdoor venue. So those are some of my favorites. I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds more.
Isn't that cool just to look back out and say, we had John Mayer at Avon Jake's for a couple $100 back in the old days.
Oh, yeah, Maroon 5. I paid Maroon 5 $100 in beer. The first couple of times they played, and just there's a ton of those examples of bands, but it speaks to how bands tour and when they when they start, they're playing through the clubs. They're getting on the road, they're getting in front of bodies, and that's where I think certainly our venues will always have a place in the growth of bands. Even though music's accessible digitally, the Who's Next playlist and you name it, the bands still have to get their feet wet on the road, and we hope that the venues that we have are always a part of that as they keep moving, that we're one of their first plays.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, congratulations on all your success. The website is thegranada.com. Alan Farris, Landmark National Bank, thank you so much for joining us, for collaborating with the Grill Nation show and introducing us to Mike today. Your website is banklandmark.com. Appreciate all your time today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Always a
having me.
pleasure.
You guys are doing a great job. It's exciting. I kind of want to go out to a concert now this weekend, or maybe next weekend. The weather's turning, it's a great time.
Absolutely. You just let me know. We'll host you up here in Lawrence. All right, Jason?
I love to. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. And I want to thank all our listeners for joining the Grill Nation show today. As always, you can connect with me on social media at Jason Grill and at Grill Nation Show. Also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Jason Grill. All of our shows, again, are up on podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher. Also, you can watch the Grill Nation show with Jason Grill on YouTube. And finally, if you'd like to be on the show or you want to collaborate or partner, just look for my email, which is grillnationshow@gmail.com. That's grillnationshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And hopefully we can have more great guests on like Mike. Mike was a heck of a guest. I really enjoyed that show today. Again, and thank Alan Farris. Great guy, great bank. Banklandmark.com is the website. I want to thank all those for listening and watching today, and we will see you again soon. And congrats to Mike Logan again from the Granada on all his success. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.